Hello again. Welcome to the second part of week 4 from the ECE9013 course. In this part, we will be discussing functions and how to define them and give an idea about the scope of variables within a function and the difference between the return keyword and print keyword. So basically, functions are a set of reusable pieces or chunks of code. A function is not run in a program until they are called or invoked. So you can write a function without actually using it, and it will not run unless it is called for as part of the program. So a function has several characteristics. It has a name, it has a parameter, or it has a set of parameters. So it can be no parameters, one parameter, or multiple parameters. It has a docstring, which is an optional characteristic, but it's very advisable because the docstring gives an idea about what the function does. Then it has a body, which is the actual core of the computational instructions. And finally, it returns something. So here is an example of a function determining whether a number is even or not. So we use the keyword def or definition, def. Then we put the name of the function, and then between parentheses we specify what are the parameters or arguments. Then we have the column. This part is what we call the specification or the docstring, which is put between two sets of 3 quotes. So it tells us what the function does. So here it's describing that the function takes an input, a positive integer I, and returns a Boolean true if this number is even or otherwise false. Then we have the body of the function, which is basically trying to print. We print the statement is inside is even, and then we return whether the number modulo 2 is equal to 0 to specify whether it's divisible by 2, which means it's even or not. Notice that here the indentation, so any part within the function has to be indented for it to be included as part of the function. And then outside the function, we can call the function or invoke it. So in the function body here, for example, this is one statement. So we are running a bunch of instructions or commands. However, it's important to note that the function usually has the last statement is the return statement, which is what is the function giving as an output. So here in this case, we're returning the result from this expression. So the return word is a keyword that specifies what is the output from a function. So within a function, we can determine or define what is the scope of a variable. So once we define a variable, we define a formal parameter that gets bound to a particular value. Then the actual parameter, when the function is called, is a new scope or a frame or an environment which we create when we enter the function. So the scope is a mapping of names to the object. So here, for example, when we are defining a function f that takes an input x, and then we have a set of expressions, and then we print in f of x, x is equal to such, and then we return x. So this is the function definition, and then this is the main program code. So initially we define x to be equal to 3, and then we define z to be f of x. So in this case, x becomes a parameter to a function, and the output from this function is assigned to z. So for this example, we have f, the function, it has a bunch of code, and then we have x, the variable, with a value of 3. So this is in the global scope, which is the code scope. Then within the scope of f, once we call it, it takes the value of x. So the value of x is set to 3. Then it changes to 4 after this statement. And then this is returned back to z. So at the end of this block of code, we have z set to 4. So notice that the value for x in the global scope is 3, but within the scope of f, it was changed from 3 to 4. One warning is that if we don't have a return statement inside the function, the Python will return the value none because we did not use the return statement. So if we don't have this return statement, this represents the absence of a value. So the difference between the return statement and print statement is that a return only has a meaning inside a function. You can only use one return statement or instruction inside the function. The code inside the function will not be executed if it's located after the return statement. That's why the return statement has to be the last statement within the block of code or within the function. And it has a value associated with it given to the function caller. On the other hand, the print statement can be used outside of functions as well as inside. You can execute many print statements inside a function. The code inside the function can be executed after the print statement, and it has a value associated with it that is just outputted to the console rather than assigned to a function. Thank you.